Hello friends, today we're going to talk about a quite nice item from Tod Cutler. This is a Wakefield Hanger, late 15th century English backsword or falchion, single-edged, has a knuckle bow. This is Tod's particular interpretation of a fairly famous sword of the 30 years or the English War of the Roses. There's a couple examples of these out there. A very famous one being made right now is an example done by Windlass in conjunction with Royal Armories. Their example does not have the knuckle bow. This knuckle bow is something of a point of contention. The example that Royal Armories and Windlass are working together on has just a little nub here, like a nagel on a messer. Nobody's really sure if the example that Royal Armories holds, a battlefield find apparently, is something that lost the knuckle bow, or if it never had one. Todd's decided to go ahead and make an example with what he believes would be a reasonable knuckle bow design. I think so too. A big difference between this one and the one that Windlass is making with Royal Armories, besides the knuckle bow, is the grip size. This one has a fairly generous grip size. They're very similar otherwise. I believe that the one that Royal Armories and Windlass are putting together has perhaps a more sophisticated blade design as well. That was a big area of interest for people like Matt Easton, who's involved with Royal Armories in designing and approving the Windlass example. Matt Easton at Scholar Gladiatoria, highly recommended. Matt is an archaeologist professionally, or he was. Now he's a sword dealer in antiquities, antique swords, plus he has a lot of experience in the recreational sword fighting world. He's a recreationist. One thing I do like about Todd's example is the very spacious, we'd say, grip. Allows for the knuckle bow to be quite comfortable, gives good clearance. Handling is easy. It is a good example of what makes the Wakefield hangers very popular. Very light, very fast. They're very smart. It has a pronounced distal taper. Not necessarily easy to see here, but it is there. You can make that out. Very fast, very light. Very good cut and thrust sword. And something I like, besides having the full knuckle bow, which I think is relevant and quite likely to have been there, at least on some examples, is that the sword, scabbard, and belt that come with the sword can be had in colors other than black. It has quite nice buckle brasswork, historically accurate. I put on these diamonds, got these from a company here in the States that makes a lot of things like that, Archeo Studios, but it comes with the belt end, and it comes in green, black, red, brown. Todd's Workshop is one of Todd's commercial sites. They've been in business for quite a few years, making bespoke custom items. that are usually not in stock. This is something from Tod Cutler, Tod's other commercial site, which usually makes more called custom, well, semi-custom, but often things that are available in stock. And this is his affordable, part of his affordable sword line. The scabbard is wood cord, leather covered, sewn down the back. It has a brass shape. You'll notice that it has a very accurate shape to the shape of the blade itself. This is something I think is superior to the one being made by Windlass and Royal Armories, which has a rather generic scabbard shape and a very generic looking end on it, cap or shape. The one Tod does, I think, is a little finer. The prices are similar. This is a very English sword. It enjoyed a certain vogue, apparently, in England for not a terribly long period of time, late 15th century. I like that this is an English sword made by an English maker. The fit in the scabbard is not particularly tight, which I think is not necessarily a bad thing. You don't want your sword getting stuck because it gets a little damp, wood swells, grips that blade, makes it difficult to draw. There's just enough resistance that it doesn't just fall right out, but a little bit of effort and it will. Most of the weight is in this somewhat complex hilt. The S-shaped guard, somewhat bird head pommel, and that knuckle bow. But they all work together quite well. I have fairly average sized hands, medium. I find it's very comfortable. There's plenty of clearance. It's easy to move. You can get more of a handshake grip. There's enough room for that, not a lot. This is a common soldier's sword. Billmen, archers, hand gunners all would have likely carried something like this, sort of equivalent quality and value. Matt Easton does a really good job when he's reviewing it, his version that he did with Windlass, talking about how complex the blade design is. The Windlass design may be a little bit more accurate to the example Royal Armories holds as far as how sophisticated that blade is. Tod's example may be a little bit simpler. The general shape, geometry, look and feel is there. It's debatable whether this is more or less accurate to what might have been actually found on the battlefield, but certainly the example held by Royal Armories and the one that Windlass is making is no slouch. And Tod's, I think, is a good competitor. The grip is leather. Over probably cordage. It was cord wrapped to give it some texture. I think you can make some of that out. It has a great feel to it. I've done some cutting with this. I'm not going to do any today. All out of pool noodles. But it is a great cutter when properly wielded. I'm not a great cutter. Sword is like most things. It's better at its job than I am at mine. But I think this is a very good value. It's very high quality steel. An English sword made in England. Very nice scabbard. Very fine example. It's excellent fittings. available from Todd's workshop. Thank you.